Welcome back, guys, to HVAC Tech. This time I'm going to show you how to change the oil in a reciprocating compressor, semi-reciprocating compressor, and also into a hermetic compressor. And we're also going to be talking about a couple of tools and a couple of different things you can do whenever you're changing the oil into a system. Okay. Well, first of all, let's start with the tools. I want you to get a little bit closer. We're going to be using the nitrogen, the tank with the regulator to pressurize the system just a little bit. Okay. We're going to use like a small container. You can grab like a plastic container, whatever. This is what I have right now. So, all right, we're going to use an adjustable wrench. We're going to be using the service wrench for refrigeration. We're also going to be using RX11 flush. A little bit of explanation how you can use this chemical. Sometimes also you can use what is called a quick check for the acid test for the oil or for the air conditioning system, refrigeration systems too. Okay. We're also going to be using the gauges, the scale, digital scale to weight the amount of oil that comes out of the compressor, and also the star of the video, which is what's called an oil pump, a manual oil pump. And then also we have some little bit of mineral oil. Good. And there you go. So this is just kind of like the basic tools that we're going to use in order to change the oil from the compressor. Okay. Before we start the video, the process, I need to show you something here, guys. Let me grab my towel. Okay. This here, let me put the tools on the side. And this compressor here, it's a coupling compressor, and this is what is called a hermetic compressor, which is made by Copeland. And you call this a hermetic compressor, by the way, reciprocating. Because the compressor is actually sealed and welded from the manufacturer. You can see it's all welded, right? And also you call it a hermetic compressor because there's no way that you could take it apart and fix it. So this is not going to happen. So once the compressor is actually either mechanically damaged, or if it's leaking somewhere around the compressor, or the winding of the compressor is damaged, is burned, then you definitely need to scrap it and get a new compressor. Okay, so they're kind of, this is a nice thing to have this kind of compressor because there's less leaks. But then once the compressor goes bad, it's pretty much is a throwaway compressor. Okay, so this is a hermetic reciprocating compressor from Copeland. Okay. Also, we're going to show you something else, that this compressor comes with the king valve or service valve attached to it. So you guys can see it's welded. It's actually, you cannot take it off. This is welded into the compressor. So that's another little problem, because if this valve gets damaged, let's say it starts leaking, and you cannot stop the leak, then that's going to be a problem, because then you're going to have to replace the whole compressor. Okay? Now, let me show you another different type of compressor. Come on this side, and this is a famous scroll compressor. Now this was designed especially for air conditioning, and this is once again made by Copeland. Copeland designed this type of compressor. I want you guys to take a look at this. That your suction line actually is not on top. Your suction line is on the kind of like in the middle of the compressor. How do I know this is a suction line? Well, because it's a bigger connection. Okay. Now this is the suction line, and this is the vapor, hot vapor coming out of the compressor. And by the way, this is a scroll compressor. You can see that it's tall. They're normally tall and they're thin, So that's a scroll compressor. And also you can notice this because the suction line connection is going to be at the bottom, and the discharge, vapor discharge connection will be on the top. Okay. Once again, this compressor, it's a scroll, but it's a hermetic compressor. Why? Because it's sealed or is welded all the way around it. See, everything's welded There's no way you can take it apart, fix it. Once again, once this compressor mechanically or electrically goes bad, it's a throwaway. You know, you can recycle the metal and then just get another compressor. Okay, so scroll compressor. I got a little bit of oil from the pump. Okay, cool. Now let me show you something else here. Then we have what is called the semi-hermetic compressor. Now this is a different story. Now this information is for my day class students, which we're doing refrigeration. The semi-hermetic compressor, as you guys can see, it's completely different. You know, it's not tall, it's not well, it's a little bit short, but it's completely shaped. It's really heavy. Okay, and these semi-hermetic compressors are made of a cast iron. This is made of cast iron, and also, if you guys can see, there's a lot of bolts. This actually, you could take it apart. That's why it's called a semi-hermetic. You can see all those different bolts here, This is where the pump is. This is where the pistons, the valves and the pistons are located. This is where the winding of the compressor is located. The crankshaft is right in the middle. You can also, let's put it here a little bit on the side. You can also You can also remove this plate also. This is for the bottom part of the compressor. Also, it comes with side glass. Take a look at that. See if you can see something in there. See, there's a side glass right there. Let me bring a flashlight. There we go. I don't know if you can see a little bit of oil. Maybe not, no? Yeah, no, it should be halfway. The oil amount on the side glass should be halfway, and I'm moving the compressor, there's nothing there. So this is empty. So I'm going to show you first how to charge the oil into the compressor, okay? So that's the side glass. You can see how much oil. There's also a connection here on the side of the compressor where you can take this off to remove the oil from the compressor. And to add the oil to the compressor, you can actually do it through the king valve. Now, this is called the king valve. It's going to have one king valve for the low side, and it's going to have a king valve for the high side. This is the high side, this is the low side. Now, you're probably, wondering, how do I know this? Well, first of all, I'm an instructor. Second of all, I got a lot of experience. And third, well, bring the camera close, and look what it says right there. There's an L for low pressure. So this L for low pressure, this is for this connection, but then also that tells you this is my low side right there. So this is my low side, right? Now, someone should have not put this cap here. It doesn't belong here. Let me take it off. And by the way, this is why you're supposed to have an adjustable wrench. You're supposed to use an adjustable wrench to remove the caps out of the king valves, right? So please do not use channel locks. Don't use channel locks. Don't use any other type of wrenches. Please use the adjustable ones. Why? Because if you damage this connection right here, then this cap is no good. And let me tell you something. This caps will stop leaks on the stem of the king valve. All right. And by the way, that right there, that is called a stem, and this is the whole king valve, which you can replace if you need to. The king valve is attached by 2 screws, 1 and 2 screws, and it has a gasket that you can also replace. Okay, and which it brings me to a little bit more information. Remember that I say you can take it apart the whole thing. You can replace the valves on the compressor. You can replace the pistons in the compressor. You can replace a gasket. There's going to be a gasket over here. There will be a gasket. There will be a seal over here. There will be a gasket here. So everywhere there's gasket. If it's leaking, you can actually put new gaskets. Let me shut my phone for a second. And also there's a gasket right here on the side glass. So there's places where there's going to be leaks. You can put a brand new gasket. Okay. Now I was talking about the king valve here. You gotta use the proper tools to move the king valve. In this case, we're gonna use what is called the service wrench. And this service wrench comes in with the different sizes right here. I don't remember 100%, but you can see this is a bigger one, medium size, a smaller one. So we're gonna use this one here. I think it's 3/16, 7/16, 5/8, something like that, all right? This one, we're gonna use it here to either back-seated, front-seated, crack, or mid-seated. There's actually 4 positions. Okay, I'm going to show you this in a second. Okay, and the same thing with the high side. They also, you have a gasket, you have the king valve, and then you also have a cap, which this is why you have to use a adjustable wrench so you can remove the caps off. Okay, this is, by the way, this is a metal cap. They used to make them out of brass, and then they move into metal, and then now they move into plastic. So you know what's going on. But I mean, as long as you can keep those caps on, then that's good. Okay, this is for my high side pressure. This is for my low side pressure. And well, let me start showing you how would you add oil into the compressor. And the way we're going to do it is by using a pump and what's it called, a container of mineral oil. So let's start doing that. Okay. Now let's just say the system. Let's just say the system that is that it has pressure in the system. Okay. If you have pressure on the system, which means it has freon, this pump, it's able to push. This pump is able to push the oil, even with the pressure in the system. By the way, you would never try to add oil to a system that is running. You're going to have to shut it off. Okay. So this pump is capable of pushing the oil through the low side, through this valve, all the way down here, even with the pressure in the system. Okay. So what we're going to do is front seat, just to add some pressure into the system. Front seat, the king valve, which is going to be clockwise all the way to the front, and front seat, this one, the discharge valve too. Let me see what position it is. All right, let me go this way. That will be front seat. Then what we're going to do is we're going to add some nitrogen. By the way, you guys not going to be doing this in the field. I'm doing it right now just to show you that even with pressure, you're able to add oil into the system. I'm going to put my gauges. Put my low side and my high side. There you go. Let's see. We're going to have to use this valve. Okay. And then let me put the high side. Okay, and then we're going to use the nitrogen tank and attach it to the nitrogen. Make sure this is loose. Open the valve first. You only add in no more than 50 psig. Please. This compressor, if you add more than 50 psig of pressure to this compressor, this actually can explode. It comes in pieces. So you don't want to do that. Maximum pressure is 50 psi, and it should be enough pressure. Okay. If it's less, it's possible. It's fine. Okay. So system is connected. By the way, I front seated the king valves, this one and this one, so I can cancel the port, which goes to the condenser, and this is coming from the evaporator, so I cancel that. Okay. And now let's add some nitrogen. Open the gauges. Once again, no more than 50 psig. Here we go, 30. Getting close. And that should be enough. We got about 40, 45 psig. Now we got nitrogen in the system. Good. Now what I'm going to do is remove this connection, but I'm going to have to close it here because I cannot move my front seated position. I cannot move it, so I just close that one. Remove this one down. Okay. And now what I do is bring my scale. Let me take the stuff away. We don't need it right now. Bring my scale. Bring the oil, the mineral oil. Open the container. And since this is a mineral oil, you can leave it open for a while, not a big deal. But if it was a POE, I hear some information that you should not leave it open no more than 20 minutes, okay? If it was POE. But this is mineral oil, should be no problem. Okay? Now, we put in the oil pump inside the container. Okay? Then we're gonna have to replace this plastic hose with the connection. We're gonna take it off and use a, another hose. Let me get the other hose, please. Okay. Now we're going to connect this one into the oil pump and this one into the valve. Now remember, the system has a pressure of about 50 psi, just to show you that even with with pressure, you can actually pump in the oil. What I'm doing is I'm closing this connection because it's leaking, so that's why I'm doing that right now for a second. So I saw it's leaking. Okay, good. Okay, now ready? Okay, so what we're gonna do is gonna start pumping the oil from here into the compressor, and we're also gonna be looking is at the side glass, because everything is gonna be based, or everything is gonna be done by looking at the side glass to make sure the oil level doesn't go beyond this point. Okay, so here we go. If you want to use the scale to see how many ounces of oil you put into the system, you can do that, but you don't have to. But I mean, all depends on the company, you know, how much they charge, you know, by the pound or by the ounces. It all depends on the company, okay? I put it to 0. I don't touch anything, put 0, good. And now let's start pumping, okay? Here we go. What I'm gonna do is gonna build pressure. So what I did is building pressure between here all the way up to here. And once I build that pressure, now I can open the valve, and believe it or not, you're not seeing it right now, but there's oil going in. Now, how do I know this? Because watch it. Come over here. It's -2 ounces right now. So that means I already put 2 ounces of oil into the compressor. Okay? Now, let's keep doing it. And let's use the flashlight just to show you. Oh, it's up here? Thank you. We're going to use the flashlight just to show you that the oil is going to be coming out, right? Here you go. Please. And let's keep going. Oops. All right, let me just clean this. Good. Here we go. You should see level of oil. See, and it's a little bit hard because I'm fighting against the pressure in the compressor. But just to show you that this pump is able to add oil even with the refrigerant or nitrogen inside the system. I put the flashlight, let's see if we see it. Oh, there it is. If you look at the closer now, let me see the flashlight. If I move the compressor, now you can see the oil level right there. Good, so we're done. Now, remember to pretty much close this. Remember to close the valve, and try to also put a rag right here, because remember there's pressure, a little bit of pressure, so make sure you put a rag here when you disconnect this one here, because there's going to be oil coming out. There you go. And then disconnect this one from here. Okay. And we're done using the pump. So this is when it gets a little bit you know, messy, because there will be oil leaking everywhere. So make sure you got a rag. Make sure you have a separate container for the pump for the mineral oil, and another pump for POE oil, because remember, you cannot mix oils. So make sure you dedicate tools for specific oils. You're going to have either mineral or POE, which are the most common for air conditioning and refrigeration. So let me put this back here. okay? Just for now on the floor, and then we're gonna clean the mess because we gotta keep going with the video. And now, so now the system, excuse me, I'm going in front of the camera. Now the system, as we know, that it has enough oil in the system, and it's ready to, you know, to do the, backseat the valves, you know, and you can now run the compressor. But now, what if you want to recover? What if you want to recover what you call it? Let's say you want to take off that oil from the compressor. Okay. So now I'm going to show you. Okay. Now, in order for me to get the oil out of this compressor, the compressor has to be. You have to front seat the compressor, and the refrigerant that is strapped right now into the compressor, it has to be recovered. Okay, but you guys know, I mean, we know that I didn't put refrigerant. What I did is I put nitrogen. So what I can do right now is just release the nitrogen. I have to release the nitrogen that is inside, so I can remove this connection and put a special hose so I can get the oil out. Okay, so let me release the nitrogen. Let's put the rag over here, and it's going to be a little bit of oil coming up. I'm just releasing nitrogen. I can also do it through the high side. There you go. It's almost done. There you go. So there will be no more nitrogen in the system. And why I did this? Because if I would take this connection, this is to remove the oil. If I would take this connection out, all the oil is going to be coming in my face. So we don't want that. Okay. Now, I'm going to grab my adjustable wrench, remove the cap. This is the cap that was leaking. Some of these companies make a special valve that you can put in this connection, so you can remove, change the oil out of the compressor without doing all the steps. You know, they make some special valves. I do have one somewhere in the back. Okay, now what we're going to use is the other hose. This one, and this hose, it has a cut. See that? It has like a 45-degree, or I would say something like maybe more than 45-degree cut in angle. So what I would do is bring the hose inside into the compressor crankcase and try to get all that oil from the bottom of the crankcase of the compressor. Okay? Now, we don't need this oil anymore. Let's cap it. And then we're going to bring the small container, which I left it back here. Oh, here. Yes, and we're going to put the small container here. And this is where you can actually press 0. And this way, whatever refrigerant you get into the container is going to give you a weight, you know, how many ounces or pounds of oil. Okay? Now, let's go back. Let me get through it. Sorry. All right, now, to get the oil out of the crankcase of the compressor, we're going to have to add nitrogen again. Okay, we're going to add a little bit of nitrogen. And as I'm adding nitrogen, you're going to see the oil start coming out of here. And then I'm going to put this one right here into the container, and you're going to see how the oil is going to start coming out, right? Now, on the it says that you're supposed to use like a putty, plumber's putty, to put it around here, so you don't get a leak of a nitrogen coming out of the connection. Okay? I'm going to try to just use my finger just to block it as much as possible, but then you're going to see the oil coming out. Okay? Here we go. Let's add. This is open. Is set to 50. Let's start adding, hold it, and watch it, okay? Watch the oil. As I'm adding nitrogen, you can see how the oil is coming out. And like I said, try to cover this hole as best as possible. See that? And by the way, the oil is a little bit dirty. And once that happens, you can actually grab this and go more at the bottom. Don't allow it to get a lot of nitrogen because it's going to make a lot of bubbles. Just go slowly and try to cover and get the bottom as much as possible. And there you go. Okay? Now, like I said, this is a little bit messy job, so you got to be careful and not to shoot their oil all over the place. But there you go. That's how would you get the oil out of the system. Now let me get a rag. This one is not the best, but that's fine. Let's use this rag. Okay, just kind of clean around. Okay, and there you go. Now remember, let's kind of recap. I have to, in order for me to take the oil out of the compressor, I have to remove either the freon or the nitrogen. And in order to remove the freon and nitrogen, you have to front seat the king valve. You gotta front seat this one and front seat the high side. If you don't front seat it, there will be a lot of freon coming from the whole system, and then you're gonna, bend the refrigerant, and you're not supposed to bend the refrigerant. So that's why you have to front seat the king valves. Once you front seat it, it cancels the access from the evaporator and also the access to the condenser. So you only have access to the service valves, so you can see what's the pressure in the system. You can add nitrogen to get the oil, or you can also recover the freon if there's, well, it should be some freon inside the compressor. Okay? So there you go, guys. Let me get this hose out. You can just keep doing it a couple of times until you get all the oil. And like I said, this is messy, so you gotta make sure you drain, get the oil out. And take a look, look at the weight. So far, this is how much oil we got from the system. Give me 1 second. And then whatever you get out of the system, you can put it back. But in this case, in this type of compressor, we don't need to worry about this too much, because then we can actually see the sight glass. And like I showed you before, when the system doesn't have oil, there's no oil in the sight glass. When you put oil, then you're going to see it. Okay. All right. There you go. This is the steps of adding oil and replacing, taking off the oil from a semi-hermetic compressor. Now, let me show you how would you do it in a hermetic compressor. It's a different story. Real quick. Let me put this here. Put it aside. Let's put this back. And let's get the hermetic compressor. All right. On the hermetic compressor, I just wanted to show you the example of a king valve welded into the hermetic compressor. But normally, this type of compressors will not have king valves. If you don't have a king valve, it's just going to have a piece of pipe, and on this side, it's going to, just like this, it's going to have a piece of pipe, right? If you want to do what I just did to remove the oil without recovering the freon, it's not possible. So why? Because there's no way you can cancel the refrigerant going to the condenser or to the evaporator. So in this type of compressor, or the scroll compressor like that one, okay, to get the oil out, you're gonna have to put it on its side. So, well, first of all, let me tell you, you have to recover all the freon. You gotta get all the freon from the system, first of all, right? Which that's gonna be a big job, recover. Then, you go into the system and remove the connections or cut the copper pipe, just like this one here. They cut it, see that? You gotta cut the pipes. Make sure you leave some piece of copper so you can brace another connection. Cut them off. Once you cut it off the connections, you're gonna have to unbolt, remove the bolts that is holding the compressor into the condenser. Excuse me. Grab a container, put the container in a table, just like this one, and then tip. The oil will start to coming out of the suction line, not the high pressure line, not this one, the suction. So what you do is hold the compressor and just tip it over until you get the oil. By the way, you have to put another container. Someone's gonna help you, or you can put the container on the floor and then just keep going like this. The same thing is gonna be done with the scroll compressor. Now you gotta be careful with this ones too, because this is a very heavy compressor, so the same thing you're gonna have to do done with the scroll compressor. Okay, the oil will coming out of here, and then you need to what? Tip it over to get the oil out. And these are very heavy, so be careful with your back. Make sure it doesn't fall on you, on your feet, and then you get hurt. Okay. Now, what if you want to add? Well, once you get the oil out, let's say you want to replace the oil. What if you add some oil to the compressor? You're going to do the same thing. You're going to grab your container. This time you're going to have to wait it. It's important. Let me take the oil out of here because this is getting crazy. It's very important that when you add oil into this type of compressor, you're going to have to wait it. Why? Because there's no sight glass. Take a look around. There's no sight glass. There's no way that I can say, oh, how much, do we have the right level oil? The same thing with the scroll compressors. They normally don't have sight glass. So that's why you have to weight it. You want to make sure how many ounces. You're going to have to go into the Copeland website and go to the technical specifications and put the model number of this compressor and find out how many ounces of oil you can actually add into this compressor or that one, whatever. Or sometimes they even says on the nameplate of the compressor. It will tell you the type of oil and how many ounces. Most of the time, you're gonna have to find out from the company website and try to get the information. Okay? So what you do is just put the container here, open the cap, put the pump, get the pump with the hose, connect it either here into the low side, remember, low side, and start pumping until you get the right amount or weight, and then you stop. And that's the way you add oil into a hermetic compressor. It could be a reciprocating or it could be a scroll compressor. Okay? That's it to add the oil to the system. And I was going to show you other things that for just in a second. Here we go, this stuff, this one here, and there's a couple of reasons why we pretty much replace the oil in the compressor. And one of the major things is because the oil inside the compressor is contaminated. And we're talking about not just moisture or water, we're talking about acid. Acid that it was built inside, or the acid level is already too high. So once you find out that there's a lot of acid into the system, you're going to have to recover all the freon and the oil. Okay, you're going to have to replace the oil in the compressor. Now, there's a couple of tools that you can use. For example, this one, the quick check, that you can use to find out if there's acid on the system. But you have to do this when there's freon in the system. Okay. There's also another brand. This one works okay, not the best, but it's okay. There's another brand that is called QuickMate. I think it was the brand. That one also, it's a really good one. Let me see if I can grab my phone. And before I, here we go. Give me 1 second. Yeah, almost done. It's actually called Checkmate. I'm sorry. It's called Checkmate. And this brand, I don't have that one right now in this moment. I believe it's in my truck. This one will tell you the moisture contamination. It also tells you the acid contamination. We're talking about numbers, not just that, oh, yes or no. It's actually talking about the level of the moisture or acid into the system. So it's called the Checkmate test kit. So that's another one that you can use. And by the way, the Checkmate, you can actually test the system even when it's running or when it's not running. You don't have to remove the compressor. You can just do it in the system, okay? So that's for finding out if the oil is contaminated in the compressor. But then also, you can also use this company, which is for new column, is the RX11 flush. This here, it's a really good product to remove or to clean the line set into the system. It's not meant to use in compressors and evaporators. It was meant just for the line set, just to flush the line set, make sure to remove all the acid. Any acid that was built in the system, you can actually do it with this RX11 flush. Okay, it's a good product. I've been using it a couple of times and it works very, very good. Okay, by the way, for any retrofit, it's excellent. If you want to retrofit from R22 447C, this is what you need to use to clear the line set through the whole system. Okay, so this is our X11 and the acid kit for the system, and I think we did cover everything. Did I put any tools on this side? Nothing. Okay, got everything covered, and the service range. Okay, guys. Well, that's it. That's all the whole thing, and hopefully you guys learned a little bit from this video. And I'll see you guys later, and take care.